Elevated Transmissions Podcast.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Al Lover, back with another Elevated Transmissions podcast for you. It's the second week that we're doing this, and I'm pretty stoked to have my man Chris Catalena here with us. This was recorded a while back when we were working on the Pet Sounds compilation, so going to talk a little about that. If you guys don't know, Chris Catalena is a Austin, Texas musician. I think he's from somewhere else, Bryan, Texas or somewhere. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, he's an Austin staple in the music scene, and he is quite the talented, unique, and hysterical human being. One of my good friends. I met him touring Europe with Christian Bland. He was playing keys in Christian's band, Christian Bland and the Revelators, and we became fast friends. He's got a great sense of humor, super talented musician, and just overall good dude. Learned a lot from him on that trip, and continue to learn from him as he is full of wisdom and is wise beyond his years, even though he's probably pretty old, maybe 73 at heart. But yeah, so Chris and I take some time to talk about his influence, the Beach Boys' influence on him, his music. You know, he's been a fan since he was a little kid. When we talk about that, the Beach Boys' influence in popular culture via movies, radio, just being around it, and growing up as a youth in the 80s and 90s and whatnot. So yeah. He's worth listening to, in more than just music. His words will inspire you. So here we are with my main man, Chris Catalena, and hope you guys enjoy it. Peace.
Do I look weird, man?
Yeah, you look weird as hell, dude.
I got my lights. You see my... Look at this.
You have lice?
Oh, yeah, I got the lights.
Oh, all right.
You thought I said lice.
Yeah, you should get that taken care of.
I'm like I'm in a miniature in the lice studio.
Get some shampoo, bro. Well, thanks for doing this, man. You're the first one.
Well, I'm real excited that I could be here with you today, man.
Yeah, I'm glad we're in the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we could have gone into my van and done this, but...
That would have been pretty cool, actually.
But, I'm glad we can be here together in Skype spirit.
Well, it makes me feel pretty good about it. I feel comfortable. Yeah, so just wanted to... The idea here is to kind of, like, get your... a little of your history with the record Pet Sounds, and kind of why you chose the song you did, and why it has a special significance to you. And I know that you told me initially, you've been practicing these songs for a long time, huh? Like, this is a record that goes back with you for a while.
Right. This wasn't my whenever you brought the idea up, I was very excited because I had been playing these songs for quite a number of years, and felt really good about practicing them and playing them, and it kind of made it a little easier to decide on what song I wanted to do, and that I'd already played most all of them, and a lot of them on Smile too. I've been just real into the piano arrangements of both of those records, and I guess that's what initially caught my ear to study it further, because the arrangements are so unique.
They are, man. They're crazy. And when I was, kind of going into this and thinking of bands, I was like, man, like, these are some pretty I mean, it's, I don't know enough, I guess, technically about music to know if it's simple or not, but I know that, I mean, just the lushness and the complexity of the texture and everything that goes into these songs it's, it's kind of a lot, And initially I was like, man, like, are these bands going to be able to pull this off? And everyone really killed it, man.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that there's a Hal Blaine in every city of people that because he used the musicians that are on the record are so good. But yeah,
Well, yeah, it's all the Wrecking Crew, right?
a lot of them. Carol
Yeah.
Kay playing bass, and so it is an initially intimidating task, but when you break it down, what people are doing, it's the strength in numbers almost.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
totally.
it's not that it's not the most complicated arrangements ever written. But it's complicated in that there are a lot of different melodies going on at once. So
Yeah, it's like a Phil Spector kind of thing, like just tons of stuff going on at the same time. Yeah.
I'm sure that was a heavy influence on the way he looked at recording, because I think a lot of the same musicians were with that producer too.
Yeah. So when did you kind of first get introduced to the Beach Boys and or Pet Sounds? Like, was this something like your pops was listening to back in the day, or?
The first time I ever heard the Beach Boys was, have you seen the movie The Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox,
Teen Wolf?
where he turns into a werewolf?
Of course, man.
I used to
It's
love that
classic.
a movie as a child, and if my memory serves correctly, which you know
That's
we're
questionable.
50-50 rolling the dice here, but I remember him car surfing to the surfing song,
Oh yeah, he did, huh?
and I remember thinking, what as a little boy, I mean, I don't know how old I was, maybe like 6 or 7 years old, but I remember thinking that was so cool. Movies were the first medium I found, to discover music as a child,
Yeah, totally.
whether it was Fantasia or Popeye or just goofy Disney movies. And Teen Wolf was one that song stuck out, and that kind of, I guess, made me receptive to the Beach Boys overall, in that it's such a fun and exciting song about surfing, and that it's irresistible.
Yeah, I mean, set to that image too, of like the Teen Wolf on
Yeah,
on
on the
top
damn
of
band.
cars.
Yeah, and I remember, as a child that affected me, and so as I think whenever I was about 15 years old, for Christmas, my mother bought me Pet Sounds CD, and Sergeant Pepper and The Doors, L.A. Woman, and a handful of CDs that she thought, okay, well, this, things I kind of showed interest in, and
We'll set him on the path to Satanism very early.
yeah, yeah. And at that point, I was able to study it,
Yeah.
on a superficial level, kind of just in listening. I didn't really start playing those songs until maybe 5 years ago. But at that point, I was able to really just take it all in. It's an easy record to like, It's one of those records it's kind of low hanging fruit in a way, but it's obvious to me why that is, because it's so unique. It's a weird thing where it's something so popular, but it's so obvious why it's popular. It's not to do with hype or anything else besides it's just a brilliant arrangement of music. So
Well, I mean, yeah, it became popular, but I guess initially like the label was not feeling it.
yeah,
Like they were like, "What the fuck is this?"
yeah, I guess there's probably a lot of truth to that they initially wasn't received with open arms from everybody, but
It charted pretty well. It charted pretty well. The singles charted pretty well.
for anything to, it's just such a hard standard to hold them, when you measure it up against, Beatles or Kinks or other Beach Boys records. It's hard. Anything is going to be hard to stand up and say, wow, that was as good or charted as good. So it is. Maybe it's unfortunate in retrospect that it didn't chart better, but the the masterpiece that it was is it was undeniable to most music lovers.
Oh, I would say so for sure, especially in retrospect. I mean, for me, like listening, like I'm not like the biggest Beach Boys guy, but that record is important to me because I appreciate it for those like the concept and the textures and the nuances and all these things that make it like so grandiose. That's what really gets me about it. Like, but I'm not like a fan of like Beach Boys music, too much. I appreciate it and I understand its like cultural significance, but it's never been anything that like resonated with me super heavy in terms of like, oh man, I need to go out and like make sure I have all the Beach Boys records in my record collection. Um,
Yeah,
but and so to me, like looking back on it, like thinking that maybe it wasn't initially received very well by the label or anything like that. It's strange because to me it just sounds like a Beach Boys record, and it's obviously it's not as like Fun in the Sun kind of like early more. It's a more mature record, but it still is like it's just a great Beach Boys record, like without without anything else added to it. I guess in my mind. So it's strange to see why, or to think that the label wouldn't have been like, "Oh, this is just a masterpiece," So I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know.
It's kind of like it is very natural that it's not so happy, shiny in the sun.
Yeah, it's sad. It's pretty sad, man. There's a dark
It's
overtone.
kind of like I'm trying to think of an analogy, but it's almost as if like a child grows up and eventually the child's not got they were kids when they were making these surf songs, so naturally
Well, shit, he was still a kid, pretty much.
as they grew up into their later teenage years and early 20s, it makes perfect sense that, and once they were out from under the production of the father of
Yeah.
and they were able to really get a grasp on exactly what the sound they wanted, and it was a great thing. But I think you're right, it's just like you might not it's and some things have to grow on you, just like you were saying maybe you didn't like it immediately at
Oh,
first.
totally, totally, yeah.
Some things do have to grow on you. I think I was just immediately receptive to it because of that memory as a child of the man surfing on the van. And team we got to thank Michael J. Fox for that.
I thank Michael J. Fox for a lot of things in my childhood. He was quite
He
the
was a very positive influence.
he very much was. That's for sure. Hoverboard, you know,
Yep.
those crazy Nikes. That those have influenced my whole worldview.
He doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Yeah, he should get more credit for sure. Yeah, big up Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
So you picked the God Only Knows track. Obviously that's like that was one that I thought someone was gonna gravitate towards quicker. Like you actually, I don't know. I don't know how many people I had reached out to or heard back from before I had contacted you, but I thought, obviously, I thought the singles, kind of the more well-known songs, were going to be kind of picked up by folks initially, but it didn't seem to be the case. And you were one of the first ones to pick one of the bigger songs. That, like for me, that's one of the songs on the record that I really know, and I
Yeah.
think most people do. So, I mean, obviously it's a good song, but for you, what does it kind of hold special to you?
It's probably not just my favorite arrangement on that record. As far, I guess, favorite is in as far as in regards to how it sounds and how it feels to play on the piano. But it might be one of my favorite songs to play by anybody. And it was at first I thought I might pick another, but once I asked a couple of people, John Alderson played bass on it. I asked him for his input, and he said it was a no-brainer. God Only Knows, that's the song. If nobody's
Yeah.
picked that song, take that song. And he kind of reminded me of what I already felt but hadn't come to exact, as quickly as he did, and that was easily the song that I think he and I had actually even played that song together before in the past, and I know I've played it with Casey Seymour that played the percussion instruments.
Yeah.
I know I'd played around with it before. It just has a great mix of string arrangements and uh, different. The harmonies are very, very hypnotic and just really probably you know one of the more psychedelic things you'll hear in pop music, in my opinion, is the Beach Boys harmonies. And at that point on Pet Sounds, they just perfected it beyond explanation. I don't know if that had to do with Brian Wilson's focus whenever he was recording it. He seemed to intently focus on those harmony arrangements, which are really, really pretty out there if you think about it. All the different sounds in it. Just the vocals alone are incredibly. It's like somebody singing beautiful harmonies on top of a Mozart song or something, and it somehow just works.
Well, I just think that, I mean, I guess I can only assume that, that being from where they came from, and like, as I'm sure having a history of loving like doo-wop music and all that type of stuff, like where those harmonies kind of come from, like it only makes sense that's really where the focus lies for him, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like in my mind, just thinking about it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and like I said, I'm not too like musically like well versed or anything, but you can tell the complexity of them, and they sound completely unique and strange.
Yeah.
They're very strange.
Very haunting.
Yeah,
In a
yeah.
way, almost like there's some ghost in the room or something.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if that's an intentional sound that they went for, or if that's just. I think that's probably most likely just the what you get whenever you put a lot of voices in cadence with one another and singing over one another. I thought it's particularly cool how I believe he selected Carl to be the lead vocal on it. So that just reading stories like that kind of seals. That's just evidence of his commitment to creating a unique vocal sound, letting someone else sing the lead, and then he could even focus further on the background voices.
Yeah, well, him kind of understanding the arrangement too, and who's better and what's the word, like who fits the tone range correctly for the song, and knowing what's best for the song, and kind of like setting the ego aside, I guess, and knowing what's best for the actual tune. So I mean, yeah, that's
a lot of lessons in the record, a lot of real life lessons.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely listen up if you ever if you got some questions about life. Make sure you listen to this one.
You could rest assured on Pet Sounds if you got. I have many.
You got an existential crisis, just put on Pet Sounds.
Yeah, and it's it shows the strength of what he became as a producer. How good of that's another strength of the record, is just how great of a producer the guy was.
How old was he at that record? Was he like in his early 20s?
I want to say 20 something, early 20s.
Early to mid, I feel maybe like I remember.
Yeah, I would guess like 24, 25. Man. But I might be wrong.
That's insane to me.
I'm sure it's on Google or something.
Yeah. I probably should have done a little homework
That's all right.
Beforehand. So so yeah, like obviously, so for you it was a pretty obvious pick. I mean, you guys did a great job in terms of the lushness of the record. Like the mix is fantastic. You got the French horn in there and the strings, and my favorite aspect is just that slap back on the percussion, man. How it starts off with that. That I love.
Yeah, that little percussion noise that you hear is actually a birdhouse.
Oh, you were telling me that, yeah.
We were searching for a percussion sound that made sense, and I guess we were weren't getting what we wanted out of the snare drum or any of the traditional drum pieces. So we dug through Brett Orson, the producer's backyard, and Casey Seymour comes out with the birdhouse that Brett's father or mother-in-law had made, and he said, "What in the hell are you doing with the birdhouse in here?" And Casey just kind of gave it a few taps, and we put a mic on it, and we thought somehow it fit perfectly, to get.
I mean, I can see it. It's basically like a wooden box. It's going to produce a cool effect, and I mean that kind of goes with the.
I think it was cedar wood.
Oh, okay, cedar, of course, in Austin. Yeah, knock some of that cedar dust off it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, like, that kind of ties into the, how the record was actually really done is like, I mean, Brian Wilson was bringing a lot of outside, just weird noises and stuff like that, and different things to just get different sounds for this record is what I understand. So, I mean, that kind of approach is, it seems to align with the ideals of the record,
I've kind of kept that in mind. I kept that in mind, not just there, but in any recording scenarios I've had. That just goes to Brian Wilson's a heavy influence, and not just as far as, well, I like his songs, but it's his technique too. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
to bring in wild cards. I like to call them wild cards. I had a few wild cards on the track, and I try to make that a regular, thing, not just every once in a while. But
I do too, man. I mean, like, even like, and not even coming from that mindset, but just in terms of like, I mean, the music that I love, I feel is always strange and unique, and there's always unique aspects to it. And if you go back to a lot of those records in the 50s and 60s, like a lot of them had like novelty sounds or strange things that they would put in the record to kind of like, you'd open your ear to it a little more if there's a unique sound on there where you can't
Mm-hmm.
really place it. You're just like, what is that? That's really cool. Like, how did they get that sound? And I think that's something that pop producers were doing back in the day. And I mean, for me, like with alternative music, I always gravitate towards things to have that kind of unique sound to them, I guess. And I try to incorporate that as well.
Another wild card we had was I made a tack piano out of an acoustic electric piano, and a tack is like a honky tonk. It's literally a thumbtack on on the end of the hammer, so that the hammer is hitting the string of the piano, and it's making a thumbtack bomb. And you can hear a lot on Pet Sounds where they tinkered with the insides of the piano. You can hear that a lot, especially at the beginning of the second track, which the name is escaping me. But the second track of Pet Sounds, the opening few notes have that sound where you can hear the string being played with. So I used that inspiration to add to the God Only Knows track, whereas I think in the original recording they used they must have used some kind of harpsichord or
something like that.
And we tried to some degree, we tried to recreate what they did, but anytime you try to recreate what somebody else is doing, you cannot help but do it your own way, because you're
a conduit to the energy, and you just filter it out in your own way, and that's kind of how it goes.
But that influence is, I think that he had a good instinct about recording, which is pretty inspirational.
Yeah, I would say for sure. Yeah, you were telling me about that tack piano thing. I think you were explaining it to me one night, and I didn't really quite understand. That's pretty cool, though. That's like a common thing, or like, is it a thing that people do, or is that something that you did like just off the cuff?
Well, I'm familiar with it because in the first piano that I learned, I started taking lessons when I was about 6, and the piano that I practiced on at home had a tack pedal on it. So whenever you push the pedal down, the tack would would fall down, and it would.
Oh wow! So it was built into the piano.
And I think my dad rigged it up, and I think he
Oh
liked
wow!
it because he was into ragtime music. Scott Joplin.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
common.
yeah.
It's common in what became known as ragtime music, and
That's what I was thinking. That sound, I was like, when you were saying that, I was like, it sounds like a ragtime thing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
But you'll hear it on some country and western. Some
Mm-hmm.
you'll hear that throughout, and it kind of sound is similar sound to a harpsichord, except it's like a more country western harpsichord.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a piano. It's not a piano, it's a
I
piano.
think I have heard people call it that before.
Have you ever seen that Simpsons episode? And like Homer is like sitting at a piano, and this like he's in like a saloon or some shit for some reason, and an old like prospector comes in, and he's like, play some piano, and he starts playing like a Mozart composition or something, and then like the prospector dude like shoots a gun off in there. He's like, I didn't say piano, I said piano. And then he just starts playing like some ragtime shit.
That's awesome. I don't
That's
think
always,
I've seen that.
oh man, that scene, like that's one of those scenes that'll just like jump into my head every once in a while. It's hilarious. So yeah, so this was a record to you that was just, you always held in high regard. But I mean, it's held in high regard, I guess, early on in the terms of like psychedelia, I guess, because I mean, from what I understand, it inspired the Beatles. The Beatles inspired Brian Wilson, and then Brian Wilson inspired the Beatles, and there was kind of this like rivalry. I mean, do you know anything about that aspect of it?
I mean, I've heard. I'm not sure of the exact timeline and such. I like to think that they were influencing one another in a healthy rivalry kind of way. And
It seems like everybody back then was, to a degree.
I want to say Rubber Soul came out, and then
I think it was Rubber Soul,
and then they made Pet Sounds, and then
Sgt. Pepper's.
Beatles made Sgt. Pepper's, and then I think maybe then Smile or Surf's Up got out after, which I loved. I loved those a lot too. So I kind of embrace all those, and you're right there. It seems like the rivalry though maybe gave us better music.
Oh yeah. We gotta stop having these bands get along, man. There's gotta be more.
Yeah, they really
there's
don't
gotta
need
be
to
more.
be getting along. If Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus would just start beefing, man, we'd have. They're good right now, but we would have. You're talking to turn in Mozart, Beethoven then.
Hey man, we'll see. I mean, I'd love to see what the Biebs is doing next. I'm pretty stoked on what the Biebs is doing these days.
That's why it's good for all the beefs, I mean, the beefs are probably are relatively good. They can't go too far, obviously, but
I don't know. I mean, what's the last contemporary beef? It's been like Drake and Meek Mill is like the last, and I don't know about all that. So
I don't know whether or not how much they're inspiring one another.
No,
I don't know. You told me one about PM Dawn and KRS-One.
Well, yeah, I think
ended bad.
I think what I think it ended
for me to hear.
It ended PM. I guess KRS-One dissed PM Dawn at a show or something, and they were there, and then it just kind of like their career just was done. PM Dawn was done after that. I want some rock and roll beef though, man. Rap beef is like commonplace. I feel like every MC has beef with somebody.
Like I'm pretty sure that Jack White and the Black Keys make.
Oh, they got a beef. Yeah, they got a beef.
They make one another better. It seems like because, I don't know. I mean,
I don't really listen to either of their music at this point, so I don't know.
I don't know a whole hell of a lot about the supposed beef, but it seems like it would be inspiring to just want to make something better. Than a homeboy down the street, Well,
I mean, I feel like everyone kind of has that. I would hope every artist kind of has that like drive, or at least enough of an insecurity with themselves to have someone else's art like put the fire under their ass to do something better. You know, I don't know, but it's kind of interesting to think about that. The back in the day that. There was the Rock. I don't know if it was a beef really, but yeah, a healthy competition. Yeah,
that's about all I know about that really. I mean, I know that they liked one another's. I've heard that Paul McCartney said that God Only Knows is his favorite song, and
oh wow.
So I mean, they were really listening to one another, which is pretty cool to think about. Beatles
Yeah.
sitting around a record player listening to Pet Sounds. It's kind of a cool image to conjure up.
What I mean, when was the first Beach Boys record? When did that come out? Was that I mean, that was obviously before the British invasion. Cuz
I think so.
Surf came before the British invasion from what I
I
understand.
can't remember which was the first Surf record. I want to say it was like 1960 or 62,
Yeah.
real early, and then I guess then we had the Beatles
What
over
was
here.
that? 64 was the British invasion?
I think so,
Yeah.
with the
Something like
Stones
that.
and the Beatles.
Yeah.
Not just to name a couple, but I guess that was a beef too. America and Britain. We've been beefing for a long time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's since the beginning, I think.
1776.
Yeah, since 1776 there's been that was the first British invasion.
Yeah. That's where
Oh man.
the roots of the Pet Sounds Sergeant Pepper beef lay.
Yep. Well, that's history repeats itself, huh?
It does over and over.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, this is great. I think this is I think we got some good stuff in here.
Well, I'm glad to be involved, man. I really thank y'all kindly for inviting me to do things with y'all.
Oh, dude, it's a pleasure, man. It's you
Beyond
did a
excited.
fantastic job. You did a
Thank you.
fantastic job. And I'm really happy to have you on the comp and to have had this conversation with you and have you involved.
It's my pleasure.
Cool, man. Well, thanks so much and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man.
All right. So, yeah, that was my interview with Chris Catalena, talking about Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson, Teen Wolf, all sorts of important childhood memories. Yeah, Chris Catalena is super talented, y'all. I can't emphasize that enough or reiterate enough. You can get his newest project. It's a split with Christian Bland and the Revelators. It's a split EP. That's at the levitation/austin.com web store. You can also get the Pet Sounds Tribute record. Reverberation Appreciation Society presents a tribute to Pet Sounds. That's for sale up there as well. levitation-austin.com, and it's just at the record label in the online store. So pick those up if you haven't yet. They're both great records. They're not going to last long, and hopefully we can make more cool stuff. So you got to support the record label, the RAS. But anyhow, just stay tuned, keep with us. We're going to keep this thing moving. We got a few more podcast interviews regarding the Pet Sounds compilation, how that came together, some more great bands coming at you. I got to do some editing this week and next, and we're just going to keep trying to put these out with interesting content, with interesting, talented people. So stay tuned for more elevated transmissions. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. This is Al Lover signing off. Peace. 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 Peace.